Maya lived in a small, quiet town surrounded by green fields and old brick houses. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, or at least they pretended to. For Maya, life wasn't easy. She wasn't one of those kids who stood out in school. In fact, most days she felt like she blended into the background, just another face in the crowd. Her teachers rarely called on her during class, and when they did, it was usually because they needed someone to read aloud from the textbook. Her classmates didn't bully her, but they didn't go out of their way to include her either. To them, Maya was invisible, a girl who sat quietly in the back row and never caused trouble. At home, things weren't much better. Maya's parents worked long hours at jobs they didn't enjoy, leaving little time for family dinners or heart-to-heart conversations. They loved her, of course, but they didn't understand why their daughter struggled so much in school. "You're smart," her mom would say every night while setting dinner on the table. "Why can't you focus?" But focusing wasn't the problem. No matter how hard Maya tried, learning just didn't come naturally to her. Numbers seemed to dance around whenever she looked at them, words jumbled together in books, and even simple instructions often left her confused. Every day after school, Maya would sit at her desk for hours staring at pages filled with notes that made no sense. She'd rewrite equations over and over again, hoping something would click, but nothing ever did. Sometimes she wondered if there was something wrong with her, if maybe she was destined to fail no matter what she did. On particularly bad days, tears would stream down her face as she crumpled up yet another failed assignment and threw it across the room. One such evening, Maya found herself slumped over her desk, staring blankly at a math test covered in red marks. A big, bold F stared back at her from the top corner of the page. Her teacher had written, "See me after class," in neat handwriting beside the grade, but Maya already knew what that meant. Another lecture about trying harder, another reminder that she wasn't living up to expectations. She sighed heavily and rested her head on her arms. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Normally, Maya loved watching the sunset. It was one of the few moments when she felt truly peaceful. But tonight, even the beauty of the sky couldn't lift her spirits. As she gazed out the window, a sudden flash of light caught her attention. At first, she thought it might be lightning, but the weather was clear, and there wasn't a cloud in sight. Curious, Maya got up and walked closer to the window. That's when she saw it, a bright, pulsating light moving slowly across the horizon. It wasn't like anything she'd ever seen before. Unlike airplanes or satellites, this light seemed alive, almost as if it were breathing. For a moment, Maya forgot all about her troubles. She pressed her nose against the glass, squinting to get a better look. Then more lights appeared, dozens of them scattered across the sky. They moved in strange patterns, forming shapes that reminded Maya of constellations. She grabbed her phone and opened the camera app, snapping pictures as fast as she could. By now, the entire neighborhood was buzzing with activity. People had stepped outside onto their porches, pointing and whispering excitedly. Some claimed the lights were UFOs, while others dismissed them as a prank or some sort of atmospheric phenomenon. Maya didn't know what to think. Part of her wanted to believe it was aliens. It sounded exciting, like something out of a movie. But another part of her told her to stay grounded. After all, she'd spent most of her life feeling powerless, and the idea of something larger than herself showing up out of nowhere felt surreal. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that these lights were important, that they meant something. Later that night, as she lay in bed scrolling through social media, Maya noticed countless posts about the mysterious lights. Videos showed similar phenomena happening in cities all over the world. News outlets reported sightings from New York to Tokyo, and conspiracy theories ran rampant online. While everyone else speculated about alien invasions or government experiments, Maya found herself drawn to scientific explanations. She clicked on article after article, reading about electromagnetic disturbances, plasma clouds, and advanced technology. For the first time in weeks, Maya felt a spark of curiosity ignite within her. Maybe, just maybe, there was more to the universe than what she saw in textbooks. Maybe there were mysteries waiting to be solved, not just in school, but in the stars above. As she drifted off to sleep, Maya's mind raced with questions. What were those lights? Where had they come from? And why had they chosen tonight to appear? Little did she know, the answers to those questions would change not only her life, but the fate of the entire planet. The next morning, Maya woke up to a world that felt completely different. The air outside was tense, thick with unease, as if everyone could sense that something monumental was about to happen. When she turned on the news, her heart sank. The mysterious lights from the previous night weren't just a local phenomenon, they were everywhere. Every continent, every country, every city had seen them. And now, those lights had transformed into something far more terrifying. Massive alien. Ships so large they blocked out the sun in some areas, hovered above Earth's atmosphere. They weren't sleek silver saucers like in movies. These ships were colossal and menacing, shaped like jagged mountains made of metal. Their surfaces shimmered with strange patterns that seemed to shift and change, almost as if they were alive. Each ship emitted a low hum that vibrated through the ground, making people's teeth chatter and their skin crawl. News anchors spoke frantically, trying to make sense of what was happening. Governments around the world scrambled to respond, but communication attempts failed. The aliens hadn't sent any clear messages, at least not ones humans could understand. Then, without warning, a broadcast appeared on every screen, every device everywhere. It wasn't in words or sounds, it was a series of flashing images accompanied by deep, resonant tones. Scientists quickly realized it was a form of communication, but decoding it would take time. What little humanity managed to piece together was chilling. The aliens had come to take control of Earth's resources. They needed water, minerals, and energy to survive, and they didn't care who stood in their way. Resistance is futile, the message concluded, echoing ominously before disappearing. Panic erupted across the globe. In Maya's town, people ran out of their homes, shouting and crying. Some packed their cars and fled toward nowhere in particular, hoping to escape. Others barricaded themselves indoors, stocking up on food and supplies. Stores were looted, gas stations emptied, and roads jammed with traffic. Fear spread faster than fire, consuming everyone it touched. But Maya wasn't running. She stood frozen in front of her TV, staring at the image of one of the alien ships. Something about it fascinated her. Despite its size and power, it didn't look entirely mechanical. There were organic elements woven into its design, curving lines, glowing veins, and pulsating sections that reminded her of living creatures. It was beautiful in a way that defied logic, both awe-inspiring and terrifying at the same time. Her parents, however, were too busy panicking to notice her quiet fascination. Her dad paced back and forth, muttering about how they should leave town immediately. Her mom clutched her phone, refreshing social media obsessively, searching for updates. Neither of them paid attention to Maya as she slipped away from the living room and headed back to her bedroom. Once inside, Maya closed the door and sat down at her desk. She pulled out her laptop and began typing furiously, searching for anything related to the aliens. She scoured forums, watched videos, and read articles written by scientists and amateur enthusiasts alike. Most of the information was speculation, but buried beneath the noise, Maya found something intriguing. A post from an amateur astronomer claiming to have partially decoded part of the alien's signal. According to the post, the invaders communicated using patterns of light and sound, not words. The astronomer had identified certain sequences that repeated frequently, suggesting they might represent key concepts or ideas. Though his findings were incomplete, he shared his data openly, encouraging others to build upon his work. Maya's eyes lit up as she studied the diagrams and charts attached to the post. For the first time in her life, she felt a surge of excitement when looking at numbers and patterns. These weren't random equations or confusing formulas. They were clues, pieces of a puzzle waiting to be solved. Without hesitation, she downloaded the files and opened a free audio analysis program she'd used once for a school project. For hours, Maya worked tirelessly, replaying segments of the alien transmission and comparing them to musical notes. mathematical sequences, and even ancient symbols she found online. At first, progress was slow. The patterns seemed chaotic, impossible to decipher. But Maya refused to give up. She adjusted frequencies, layered graphs, and experimented with different combinations until, finally, something clicked. One sequence matched perfectly with a Fibonacci spiral, a mathematical pattern found throughout nature. Another aligned with harmonic frequencies commonly used in music. As Maya connected the dots, a larger picture began to emerge. The aliens weren't speaking in words. They were communicating through universal principles: mathematics, physics, and art. By the time midnight rolled around, Maya's room was littered with papers covered in scribbles and highlighted notes. Her laptop screen glowed softly in the dark, displaying rows of data and waveforms. Exhausted but exhilarated, Maya leaned back in her chair and let out a shaky breath. She had done it, or at least she thought she had. What she discovered shocked her to her core. Hidden within the alien code was a warning. The invaders weren't here simply to conquer. Their home planet was dying, ravaged by environmental collapse and resource depletion. Desperate to save their species, they had turned to Earth as their last hope. But there was a catch. Their technology was unstable. If they continued harvesting Earth's resources at the current rate, both planets would be destroyed. Maya stared at her screen, her mind racing. This changed everything. The aliens weren't evil monsters bent on domination. They were desperate survivors, much like humans facing climate change or natural disasters. And yet, their methods posed a grave threat to humanity. As dawn broke outside, Maya knew she couldn't keep this information to herself. She grabbed her phone and started drafting a message to share her findings. But who would believe her? A struggling student with no credentials or connections? The thought made her hesitate, but only for a moment. She remembered the countless times she'd been told she wasn't good enough, smart enough, or capable enough. And yet here she was, holding the key to understanding one of the greatest mysteries in human history. With renewed determination, Maya uploaded her research to a public forum, attaching detailed explanations and visual aids to make her findings accessible. Then she posted links on social media, tagging experts and organizations she hoped might take notice. At first, nothing happened. Hours passed, and her posts received only a handful of likes and comments. Disappointment crept in, threatening to extinguish the spark of hope she'd felt earlier. But then, something incredible began to unfold. A science teacher from another state stumbled upon her thread and shared it with colleagues. A group of university students picked it up, analyzing her data and adding their own insights. Journalists reached out asking for interviews. Within days, Maya's discovery went viral, sparking discussions among scientists, politicians, and ordinary citizens worldwide. For the first time in her life, Maya felt seen. People listened to her, not because she was popular or confident, but because she had something valuable to offer. Her struggles in school, her late-night battles with frustration and self-doubt, all led her to this moment. As the world grappled with the reality of the alien invasion, Maya became a symbol of unexpected brilliance. News outlets hailed her as a hero, and strangers thanked her for giving humanity a fighting chance. Yet despite the sudden fame, Maya remained focused. She knew her work was far from over. Decoding the aliens' language was just the beginning. Now she had to figure out how to use that knowledge to prevent disaster, and maybe, just maybe, find a way for humans and aliens to coexist. The world was in chaos, but Maya's small bedroom had become a sanctuary of focus and determination. As the days passed, her research deepened, and the scope of her discovery grew wider. What started as a simple curiosity about alien signals had turned into something far bigger, something that could change the course of history. Maya didn't sleep much during those early days. Every moment she wasn't eating or talking to reporters, she spent hunched over her laptop, analyzing patterns in the aliens' transmissions. She worked tirelessly, fueled by coffee and adrenaline, piecing together fragments of their language, like a jigsaw puzzle. Though decoding the messages was challenging, It came naturally to her in a way schoolwork never had. For once, her brain felt sharp, alive, and capable. Each breakthrough gave her a rush of excitement, pushing her to dig deeper. One evening, while comparing audio frequencies to visual patterns, Maya stumbled upon something extraordinary. She noticed that certain sequences of light and sound corresponded not only to mathematical concepts but also to emotions, or at least what humans would interpret as emotions. A slow, rhythmic pulse, accompanied by soft blue lights, seemed to convey calmness and reassurance. In contrast, jagged flashes paired with dissonant tones indicated urgency or distress. This revelation changed everything. The aliens weren't just communicating facts, they were expressing feelings too. Their language was layered, combining logic and emotion in ways humanity had never imagined. Maya realized this meant they weren't cold, calculating machines. They were living beings with fears, hopes, and desires. As she delved further into the data, another pattern emerged. Embedded within the transmission was a plea for help, a cry for survival. The aliens' planet wasn't just dying, it was on the brink of collapse. Centuries of resource exploitation and environmental neglect had left them with no choice but to seek refuge elsewhere. Earth, with its abundant water, fertile land, and stable climate, was their last hope. But there was more. Hidden beneath the surface-level warnings about unstable technology, Maya uncovered a secondary message, one so subtle that even experts missed it at first glance. It described a potential solution. If humans could find a way to stabilize the aliens' harvesting process, both species might survive. However, achieving this required cooperation, trust, and an unprecedented level of understanding between two vastly different civilizations. Maya knew she couldn't do this alone. She reached out to scientists, linguists, and engineers, sharing her findings and asking for their input. At first, many dismissed her efforts, assuming a teenager couldn't possibly contribute meaningful insights. But as they examined her work, skepticism turned into awe. Her ability to connect seemingly unrelated pieces of information was remarkable. A team of researchers from around the globe formed to collaborate with Maya. They called themselves the Universal Bridge Project, and their mission was clear: decode the aliens' full message and propose a plan to save both Earth and the invaders' home planet. Maya became the heart of the operation, guiding discussions, interpreting patterns, and offering creative solutions. Despite her growing confidence, Maya still faced doubts, both from others and within herself. Late one night, after a particularly grueling meeting with the team, she sat alone in her room staring at the glowing screen of her laptop. Her reflection in the monitor looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes and messy hair tied back in a loose bun. "Am I really cut out for this?" she whispered to herself. "What if I mess up? What if I'm wrong?" Her phone buzzed on, the desk beside her. It was a text from her mom, who rarely sent messages unless it was important. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," the message read. "Whatever happens, remember that you've already done more than anyone expected. Don't lose faith in yourself." Tears welled up in Maya's eyes as she reread the words. Her parents had always believed in her, even when she struggled in school. Now, their encouragement gave her the strength to push forward. The next morning, Maya returned to the project with renewed energy. Together, the team made significant progress. They identified key phrases in the aliens' code that expressed gratitude, regret, and a willingness to negotiate. They also developed a prototype device designed to translate human speech into the aliens' visual audio language. If successful, it could serve as a tool for direct communication. Meanwhile, public opinion began to shift. People everywhere watched interviews with Maya and read articles about her work. Slowly but surely, fear gave way to curiosity and hope. Protesters demanding military action against the aliens dwindled in number, replaced by groups advocating for peaceful solutions. Social media buzzed with hashtags like "coexist with aliens" and "save both worlds." Maya became a symbol of resilience and ingenuity. Schools included her story and lessons about perseverance. News anchors praised her as a hero, and strangers thanked her for giving humanity a chance to unite rather than divide. Yet despite the attention, Maya remained humble. She refused to take all the credit, insisting that the real heroes were the scientists, engineers, and volunteers working alongside her. One day, while testing the translation device, Maya experienced a breakthrough that left her breathless. The machine successfully converted a short phrase into the aliens' language, "We want to help." When played back through speakers, the resulting sequence of lights and sounds matched perfectly with examples from the original transmission. "It works," one of the researchers exclaimed, clapping his hands excitedly. The room erupted in cheers, but Maya stayed quiet, her mind racing. This was it, the moment she'd been working toward. With the device ready, they could attempt to communicate directly with the aliens. But timing was critical. If they waited too long, the invaders might escalate their resource extraction, causing irreversible damage to Earth. That night, Maya lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, the team planned to send their first message to the alien ships. It was risky. The aliens might misinterpret their intentions or refuse to engage, but it was also necessary. Humanity couldn't afford to sit idly by while its fate hung in the balance. For the 100th time, Maya reviewed the plan in her head. First, they would broadcast the translated phrase, signaling their desire to cooperate. Then they would transmit diagrams showing alternative methods for resource collection, techniques that minimized harm to Earth's ecosystems. Finally, they would offer to share sustainable technologies in exchange for mutual assistance. It was a bold proposal, perhaps too idealistic for some, but Maya believed it was worth a try. After all, the aliens were desperate, and desperation often bred openness to new ideas. As dawn approached, Maya finally drifted off to sleep, her dreams filled with swirling lights and harmonious tones. When she woke up, the weight of the day ahead settled heavily on her shoulders. Today, she would step onto the global stage, not as a struggling student, but as a leader. By noon, the Universal Bridge Project's headquarters buzzed with activity. Reporters crowded outside, eager to document the historic event. Inside, technicians double-checked equipment, ensuring everything was ready. Maya stood near the main console, clutching a notebook filled with reminders and contingency plans. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to breathe deeply. "This is it," said Dr. Elena Torres, the lead scientist overseeing the project. "Are you ready, Maya?" Maya nodded, though her knees felt weak. "Let's do it." With trembling fingers, she pressed the button to activate the broadcast. Instantly, the room fell silent as the message traveled upward, reaching the alien ships hovering high above Earth's atmosphere. For several agonizing minutes, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the largest ship emitted a burst of light. A response. The team erupted in cheers, but Maya barely heard them. Her eyes were glued to the monitors as the aliens' reply unfolded before her. It was complex, layered with familiar patterns and new ones she hadn't seen before. "They're interested," Dr. Torres announced, her voice shaking with excitement. "They're asking us to clarify our proposal." Maya exhaled sharply, relief washing over her. Against all odds, they had opened a line of communication. Now, the real challenge began, convincing two vastly different species to trust each other enough to work together. Though daunting, Maya felt a flicker of hope. She had always been told she wasn't good enough, smart enough, or strong enough. But now, standing here amidst chaos and uncertainty, she proved that sometimes the people society overlooks are the ones who hold the answers. As the hours ticked by, Maya worked alongside the team to refine their message, addressing the aliens' questions and concerns. With each exchange, the gap between humans and aliens narrowed. By the end of the day, Maya allowed herself a small smile. They weren't saved yet, but for the first time in weeks, the future didn't seem entirely bleak. The days following the first successful communication with the aliens were a whirlwind of activity. Maya's life transformed completely. What had once been a quiet existence in a small town was now filled with constant meetings, interviews, and high-stakes decisions. She went from being an invisible student to the face of humanity's efforts to save itself. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her, but she refused to let it crush her. Instead, she embraced it, knowing that every step forward brought Earth closer to survival. At the Universal Bridge Project headquarters, the team worked tirelessly to maintain contact with the aliens. Each interaction revealed more about their culture, technology, and intentions. Maya quickly became the linchpin of these exchanges. Her ability to decode patterns and interpret subtle nuances in the aliens' language made her indispensable. Scientists marveled at how effortlessly she connected ideas others struggled to understand. For the first time in her life, Maya felt truly useful, not just to herself but to everyone around her. However, not everyone was supportive. Critics argued that negotiating with the aliens was reckless and dangerous. Some world leaders demanded military action instead, claiming that humanity couldn't trust beings who had already shown aggression by entering Earth's atmosphere without permission. Protesters gathered outside government buildings, holding signs that read, "Protect our planet and no deals with invaders." Tensions ran high and Maya often found herself caught in the crossfire. One evening, after a particularly heated debate on live television, Maya returned to her hotel room exhausted. Reporters had grilled her for hours, questioning whether a teenager should be leading such critical negotiations. Their skepticism stung, but Maya knew better than to let it break her. She opened her laptop and began reviewing the latest data from the aliens' transmissions. Focusing on the work helped her tune out the noise. Despite the criticism, public support for Maya's approach continued to grow. Social media played a crucial role in spreading awareness. Videos of her explaining the aliens' plight went viral, reaching millions of people worldwide. Many viewers were moved by her conviction and compassion. Comments flooded in, praising her bravery and calling her a beacon of hope during uncertain times. "Thank you for reminding us that even in darkness, there's always a way forward," one user wrote. "You've inspired me to believe in second chances for humans and aliens alike," another commented. These messages kept Maya grounded. They reminded her why she was doing this, not for fame or recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. As negotiations progressed, the team faced numerous challenges. One of the biggest hurdles was overcoming mistrust. The aliens viewed humanity as destructive and selfish based on centuries of observing wars, pollution, and exploitation of natural resources. To them, humans seemed incapable of change. Convincing them otherwise required patience, creativity, and proof of good faith. Maya came up with an idea. Drawing inspiration from history books and documentaries, she proposed showcasing humanity's potential for cooperation and innovation. The team compiled videos highlighting global efforts to combat climate change, scientific breakthroughs that improved lives, and acts of kindness that transcended borders. These clips were translated into the aliens' visual audio language and sent along with detailed explanations. To Maya's relief, the strategy worked. The aliens responded positively, expressing cautious optimism. They agreed to suspend resource extraction temporarily while discussions continued. This small victory gave humanity a much-needed reprieve, allowing governments to focus on finding sustainable solutions. But the road ahead was still fraught with obstacles. The aliens' unstable technology remained a significant concern. If they resumed harvesting resources without proper safeguards, both planets would suffer catastrophic consequences. Maya spent countless nights brainstorming ways to stabilize their equipment. She collaborated with engineers and physicists, combining human ingenuity with alien principles to design hybrid systems that minimized environmental impact. One breakthrough came when Maya noticed a recurring pattern in the aliens' transmission, a series of geometric shapes that resembled fractals. Upon closer examination, she realized these shapes represented energy flow models used in their machinery. By analyzing the patterns, the team identified flaws in the aliens' design that caused instability. Armed with this knowledge, they developed modifications that could enhance efficiency while reducing risk. When the modified designs were presented to the aliens, their response was overwhelming. Lights flashed brightly across the surface of their ships, accompanied by harmonious tones that vibrated through the air. It was their version of applause, a gesture of approval and gratitude. For Maya, this moment was bittersweet. On one hand, she felt immense pride in what they had accomplished. On the other hand, she knew the hardest part was yet to come. Building trust between two species, separated by vast differences, wasn't easy. Misunderstandings were inevitable, and setbacks loomed large. But Maya refused to give up. Her determination inspired those around her. Dr. Elena Torres, the lead scientist, often praised Maya's resilience. "You have a gift," she told her one evening. "Not just for decoding signals, but for seeing possibilities where others see dead ends. You remind us all that no challenge is insurmountable if we work together." Maya blushed at the compliment but nodded gratefully. She had learned over the past weeks that leadership wasn't about having all the answers. It was about bringing people together and empowering them to find solutions. As the project gained momentum, Maya's influence extended beyond science and diplomacy. Schools incorporated lessons about her journey into their curriculums, teaching students about perseverance, empathy, and the importance of thinking outside the box. Environmental organizations adopted her message of sustainability, urging communities to adopt practices that protected the planet. Even celebrities joined the cause, using their platforms to amplify her voice. Through it all, Maya remained humble. She never sought the spotlight and often deflected praise onto her teammates. During interviews, she emphasized the collaborative nature of their efforts. "I didn't do this alone," she said repeatedly. "It took hundreds of people working, day and night, to make progress possible. I'm just one piece of a much bigger puzzle." Still, there were moments when Maya allowed herself to feel proud. Late one night, as she stood on the rooftop of the headquarters building gazing up at the alien ship suspended above Earth, she reflected on how far she'd come. From a struggling student who doubted her abilities to a global icon leading humanity through its greatest crisis, she had defied every expectation, including her own. "I did it," she whispered to herself, tears streaming down her face. "I really did it." Below her, the city lights twinkled like stars, a reminder of the billions of lives depending on her success. Above her, the alien ships pulsed rhythmically, their glow casting soft shadows across the rooftops. For the first time in months, Maya felt a sense of peace. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new uncertainties. But tonight, she allowed herself to dream of a future where humans and aliens coexisted peacefully. A future shaped by understanding, cooperation, and hope. The final stage of negotiations was the most delicate and the most critical. Humanity and the aliens stood on the brink of either mutual destruction or unprecedented cooperation. Maya knew that this was the moment everything hinged upon. If they succeeded, it would mark the beginning of a new era for both species. If they failed, Earth might not survive the consequences. Maya and her team worked around the clock to finalize their proposal. They had already shared plans for stabilizing the aliens' harvesting technology, but now they needed to address deeper concerns: how to ensure long-term coexistence without compromising either planet's future. The aliens were skeptical, and rightfully so. Their history was marred by betrayal and exploitation, just as humanity's was. Trust didn't come easily when survival was at stake. To bridge the gap, Maya suggested creating a joint council, a governing body composed of humans and aliens who would oversee resource-sharing agreements and enforce sustainable practices. This council would act as a mediator, resolving conflicts and fostering collaboration. It was an ambitious idea, but one that offered a path forward. The aliens responded cautiously at first. Through their transmissions, they expressed worry about relinquishing control over their operations. Maya understood their hesitation. For centuries, they had relied solely on themselves, surviving against all odds. Surrendering even a fraction of authority required immense courage. Determined to ease their fears, Maya crafted a message emphasizing partnership rather than submission. She highlighted examples from human history where cooperation led to remarkable achievements, the International Space Station, global climate accords, and humanitarian efforts during crises. These stories resonated with the aliens, whose own culture valued unity and resilience. After days of intense back and forth, the aliens agreed to establish the Council. It was a monumental step, signaling their willingness to trust humanity despite past grievances. Maya felt a surge of relief, but she also knew the real work was only beginning. With the foundation laid, the next phase involved implementing practical solutions. Engineers from both sides collaborated to refine the hybrid systems designed to stabilize the aliens' technology. Factories once used for destructive purposes were repurposed to produce eco-friendly equipment. Scientists developed methods to extract resources without harming ecosystems, ensuring Earth's biodiversity remained intact. Maya played a central role in overseeing these initiatives. She traveled across continents, visiting project sites and meeting with local communities affected by the changes. Everywhere she went, people greeted her with gratitude and admiration. Farmers thanked her for introducing irrigation techniques that preserved water supplies. Fishermen praised her for protecting marine life while allowing sustainable fishing. Even skeptics who initially doubted her motives warmed up to her vision once they saw tangible results. But perhaps the most transformative aspect of Maya's efforts was the cultural exchange between humans and aliens. As communication improved, so did understanding. Humans learned about the aliens' rich artistic traditions, which blended sound, light, and movement into breathtaking performances. In return, the aliens marveled at human creativity, particularly music, literature, and visual art. Shared experiences fostered empathy, breaking down barriers that once seemed insurmountable. One evening, during a celebration marking 6 months of successful cooperation, Maya found herself standing alongside Dr. Elena Torres and several alien representatives aboard one of their ships. The interior was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Smooth, metallic walls shimmered with iridescent hues, and gravity seemed slightly different, making every step feel lighter. Alien symbols floated in the air, glowing faintly like fireflies. A representative approached her, its form shifting fluidly between solid and translucent states. Using the translation device, it conveyed a message directly to Maya. "Your actions have saved us," it said, its tone reverberating warmly. "We underestimated your capacity for compassion and innovation. You are not what we expected." Maya smiled, though her heart swelled with emotion. "Neither are you," she replied. "We've both made mistakes, but together we can create something better for our children and theirs." The alien paused, its form rippling as if processing her words. Then it extended a tendril-like appendage toward her, a gesture of respect and gratitude. Maya reached out hesitantly, her fingers brushing against its cool, smooth surface. In that moment, she felt a profound connection, not just with the alien before her, but with all living beings. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal, or at least a new kind of normal. Schools reopened, businesses resumed operations, and families rebuilt their routines. Yet the presence of the alien ship served as a constant reminder of how close humanity had come to disaster, and how far it had come since then. Maya became a household name, celebrated not just for her intelligence, but for her courage and compassion. Documentaries chronicled her journey. Books were written about her contributions, and statues were erected in her honor. Despite the accolades, Maya remained grounded. She continued working with the Council, advocating for policies that prioritize sustainability and equality. Her parents, who had always believed in her potential, beamed with pride whenever they spoke about their daughter. "She's still the same girl," her mom often said, "just bigger somehow, like she grew into herself." Years later, Maya reflected on how much her life had changed. From a struggling student who doubted her abilities to a global leader who inspired millions, she had come full circle. When asked what advice she'd give to young people facing challenges, she smiled warmly and said, "Never let anyone tell you that you're not enough. Sometimes the things you struggle with the most are preparing you for something extraordinary. As she looked up at the night sky, now dotted with both stars and alien ships, Maya felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but she knew humanity and the aliens were stronger together than apart. In the end, the crisis that had terrified the world became its greatest teacher. It forced humanity to confront its flaws, embrace, change, and recognize the value of unity. And at the heart of it all was Maya, a girl who proved that even the smallest voice could spark the biggest transformation.